Good afternoon, happy Friday, the 25th of October, coming towards the end of week 5 of the 8-week challenge. And today is in replace of an in-person seminar, a virtual Q&A. So I've got some questions that have come through, which is really exciting, and I'll be answering those from you guys. So I'm just going to get started. A few really good questions have come through actually, so I hope that you all can take something from these questions that have come through. First question, what is the best gear, especially footwear, for different workouts? For example, can I use my running shoes for walking, dancing and strength training? Really good question. Depends on the type of shoes that you have and what type of exercise you're doing. So it's really hard to give a kind of a tailored answer. There are so many variables. However, again, depends on the type of shoes that you have. So if you have just a general runner, so general runners or sort of cross-training shoes, yeah, you could wear them for most workouts. If you're doing a lot of running, so if you're running long distances or one of your goals is running, I would probably invest in a good pair of running shoes, and I wouldn't be running in sort of cross trainers or general kind of sneakers. So that is one recommendation. If you are doing a lot of running or a lot of sports, something really specific, I would get specific training shoes for that. But if you're doing kind of general exercise and a bit of everything, general running runners or like sneakers would be fine. In that, I guess, taking it back to the basics, feet are so important. Feet are the foundation of our body, and so much comes from our feet. There's such a flow-on effect from our feet up. So if our foot posture is poor, or if we are wearing shoes that aren't fit for us, or they're not necessarily good for the exercise that we're doing, they can have a really negative impact, flow-on effect from the rest of the body. For example, I will use myself as an example. In the past, I have done not a lot of running. I'm not the best runner and I don't love it, but I have gone into running sort of short to medium distances. And I found every time I would start to improve or felt myself getting better, my body would show other signs that it was not liking it. The arches of my feet would get very sore, my ankles would get very sore, my shins and tibialis anterior, so the muscle that runs along the front of my shin, would get extremely tight and painful. My quads would get very painful and extremely tight, and likewise with my knees and my hips. I went to a podiatrist, here in town. They looked at my foot posture, my walking posture, and then my running posture, and essentially said, do not run. I then got orthotics, which completely changes my foot posture, and I don't get that so much anymore. However, there is different, I guess, ideologies behind feet, and I guess different practices. So I think it's Western medicine and more traditional type training, where possibly a lot of you have seen barefoot style shoes and training barefoot to be more optimal. And again, different kind of ideologies behind both. And I'm somewhere in the middle, unfortunately, so I can't really give you a clear answer on that. Aside from saying feet are super important, so take care of your feet. Training feet and ankles can be super beneficial and have a positive flow-on effect up as well. So that was a long, convoluted answer. In short, if you've got general trainers, they should be fine for everything. If you're doing a lot of running, get some running shoes. If you're doing a lot of lifting and strength training, it can be beneficial to have a more flat shoe. So if you've got runners or running shoes like Asics Kayanos or Hokas, anything that is very cushioned and designed for running is not necessarily ideal for strength training. I would opt for something a little bit more flat with a firmer sole. So when I say flat, you may have seen, I'm doing this in my hands, You may have seen people strength training and lifting in Converse, like Converse All-Star, so they're very flat, or like Vans, and there's something else that I'm trying to think of, but those very, very flat shoes can be good if you're doing a lot of lifting, like squatting, deadlifting, things like that. Alternatively, somewhere in the middle, this is going to be awkward, I have these shoes, which are Reebok Nanos, so they're very flat, but they're somewhere in between a sneaker and a flat shoe. So these are, I guess, more like CrossFit shoes, which are good for multiple things. So kind of a little bit of a dive into shoes. But I guess in short, if you're not doing anything very specific, general runners are likely okay, as long as you invest in a good pair. I would not go and get the $70, $80, $90 pair of shoes. They're likely not great. It's that like age-old thing, you get what you pay for. Good quality shoes these days are not cheap. A good quality pair of runners, like Asics, like I was saying, Hoka's, Brooks, good quality brands can be upwards of $200, $250, but they are an investment. I would rather pay good money for a good pair of shoes than end up having to pay money in injury, injury management, like physio, things like that, because I've got an injury and put myself out of training. It's sort of that weighing up. Yeah, long, convoluted answer about footwear and shoes. In regards to other gear, I don't think there's anything specific that anyone would need for the general population. Again, it depends on your training style and what you're doing. In the gym, there's other gear that you could get that perhaps may help your training depending on what you're doing. If you're strength training, you may have seen people in the gym with lifting straps, gloves, and lifting belts. There is a time and place for those type of things for the general population, and I would say for most people doing the 8-week challenge, it's not necessary. I'll stop it there without going down that rabbit hole. If you have any more specific questions about training gear, I'm more than happy to answer it, but I would say generally for everyone that's doing the 8-week challenge likely does not need any of that kind of stuff. How often should I change my gym program so my body doesn't get used to the exercises? Really great question. And again, it is going to be dependent on your goals. It's important to find a balance between sticking at it long enough so that you are able to progress, your body's able to adapt to that exercise, you're able to challenge yourself and move forward, and then changing too quickly so obviously your body's not able to adapt and I guess progress in that movement. So generally we want to, on average, we would say from 6 to 8 weeks, depending on your training age. If you are a beginner, it might be a little bit sooner, so 4 to 6 weeks. But essentially, you should feel like you're excelling in the exercises that you're doing. You've been able to progress and challenge yourself and increase weights week after week. And then you can progress, I guess, to changing your program to be a little bit more challenging in its intensity and its difficulty in exercises. As the question does sort of say, so my body doesn't get used to it. Body is adaptive, and so it will adapt to change, and that's then how we progress and we're able to add weights or increase intensity, increase difficulty. So short answer, from 6 to 8 weeks, we generally say stick with a program for. In saying that, 4-week, 5-week mark could be a good time. We've already had a couple of challenges reach out and ask for the next program up, which is really great. It's exciting. And it just adds a bit of excitement to your program and your training as well. So we do have programs. We have 5 in total. So if you started on the Getting Started program, there's another 4 that you could potentially progress to. So if you are feeling like you've mastered the program that you started on, please reach out. We can give you another workout which will increase in difficulty in exercises, and you can challenge yourself a little bit further. I guess another signal is if you're feeling like you're plateauing in your progress. So this is purely talking about strength training and not any other physical changes. But if you're feeling like you're strength training and you get to it, you're increasing, but you're getting to a point where you're not able to increase so much, it's a bit of a muscular strength plateau. You might want to change your exercises and challenge yourself that way. Next question, what is the best way to improve flexibility? Another really good question, and again, not a simple and short answer. Practice is the main thing, and consistency. One common thing that we hear here in the gym is, oh, I'd love to go to yoga, but I'm just not flexible. That's why you should go to yoga. You know, that's almost like saying, oh, I'd love to start strength training, but I'm just not strong. Go and continue practicing yoga. That is obviously going to help to improve your flexibility. There are a lot of other things that come into play, so that's why it's not really a short, easy answer. It is important to strengthen and lengthen your muscles. So if your muscles are tight and short, you're not going to be able to get into full range of motion in some of your movements. And I'm not sure if this is coming from sort of a yoga question about flexibility or just general flexibility and mobility for daily things. So time under tension can be really good for that, and stretching under load. I think I used this example in the movement seminar that I did. The prone hamstring curl, which is the exercise where you're laying on your belly. The padding of the equipment is against your calf, and you're curling your heels up towards your bottom, and then you're extending the hamstrings or the legs back out, stretching out through the hamstrings. So that is like a hamstring stretch under load, and the longer the time under tension, the more that you're stretching that under load. So exercises like that, as an example, can be really good for improving flexibility or that range of motion. Flexibility is also reflective and influenced by muscular strength and joint mobility. It's not always possible to increase flexibility just by stretching through range of motion or to the end of range. If you have tight muscles, if you have tight joints, it is going to impair your ability to reach those ends of ranges and be flexible. So there's a lot that comes into play. And it's, like I said, not just about stretching and getting into the end range to become flexible. It is about also working through muscular tension. So using foam rollers, massage tools to release those tight knots and the tension in the muscle and the fascia, which is, will eventually have a flow-on effect for flexibility and mobility. So, again, sorry, wish I had a shorter answer for that. Next question, I want to be able to do wheel pose, but I can't push up into it. What exercises could I do to get the strength and the flexibility to do wheel pose? So wheel pose, for those that don't know, is essentially a back bend. Wheel pose would be in yoga, but it would be on your hands and your feet in a full back extension, so a full back bend. Really great goal. It's exciting. Wheel pose is fun, but it is very challenging. And again, I don't have a short answer. I would need to speak to the person that is wanting to get into wheel pose and sort of see perhaps where the limitations are, but by the sounds of it, it says I can't push up into it, which is kind of telling me you haven't got the strength to push up into it. There is a lot that comes into play with a lot of yoga poses, wheel pose being one of them. Starting at the hands, essentially, wrist mobility, because your hands are in this position when you bend back. So they're in full wrist flexion. So wrist mobility is going to be a factor, wrist mobility and strength. Shoulder mobility and chest, openness. If you're quite tight through your chest, you're not able to get into that full openness or that open position through your chest. which then obviously has an influence on shoulders, the fronts of your shoulders. If your shoulder mobility and your shoulder strength is not strong, that's going to limit your ability to push up and get into that back bend as well. Flexibility, mobility, and strength through the spine, coming into that full spinal flexion, and all of the muscles around your spine being able to be strong enough and mobile enough to get into that position. A couple of big players are glutes. So your glutes to be able to push your hips to the ceiling or push your hips up, and also your lumbar or all of your back extensors, but particularly your lumbar extensors, so your lower back, to be able to extend and flex, extend, not flex, into that fully rounded, open position through your spine, and then through the front of the body, if there's any tension. So if you've got any tension, like I said, through the shoulders, through the core and the abdomen, if your quads are tight and your hips are tight, it's going to impair you to be able to get into that nice openness through the front of the body, and then also lower leg strength. So there's a lot that comes into play. So without knowing the individual, I can't really prescribe anything in particular, but what I would focus on is bridges as a regressed option to wheel pose. So laying prone and driving the hips to the ceiling, so really engaging the glutes, and just driving as far up to the ceiling as you can. That's going to increase glute strength, that lumbar extensor, and even holding that in that extended position for a period of time. A lot of it, to be able to push up, is going to come from upper body. So I would focus on wrist mobility and hand supported movements. So that's even in a high plank, and just sort of warming up and being able to increase that wrist and forearm strength and mobility. And again, it's going to be a bit of strength through the arms as well, and a lot coming from the shoulders, shoulder health, and strength as well. So I wish I had a short answer again, sorry. In saying that, I actually have just done a search in preparing for this, and there is actually really great blog, I guess, or a post on livestrong.com, which has some good exercises that will focus on a few of these things that I've mentioned. So wrists, shoulders, core, things like that, which will help to prepare you for wheel pose. So livestrong.com, if you search that I think that would be helpful. Sorry to direct you in another spot. Cool. What are some good exercises that I can do to improve balance? Again, not a short answer. Essentially anything that challenges your balance is fantastic. Balance comes from a lot of things, so it can come again from your foundation, so your feet and ankles, lower leg. It can also largely be influenced by core, your core strength and your center of gravity. But anything unstable will help to challenge your balance. And so we look at whether that's unilateral, so standing on one leg, moving on one leg, and I guess the challenging your balance by being bilateral, if that makes sense. I'll kind of continue. Squats on the Bosu is a really good start. So the Bosu is that it's flat on one side and domed on the other, like an exercise ball on one side, with that flat side on the other. Squats on that can be really good, or even simply just standing on that. Either way, so with the flat side on the floor, or standing on the flat side with the dome side down. Standing on that can be really good. That challenges a lot of the little stabilizing muscles around your feet, ankles, lower leg. It will also challenge your core strength as your body is adjusting and trying to keep you balanced and stable. Anything single leg is going to challenge your balance, so things like tree pose, single leg RDLs, fantastic. They're also going to increase strength as well as focus and work on balance. And variants of single leg movements. Again, I could kind of list off a few. Core is going to play a huge part into balance. So high planks, so planks on your hands, planks on your elbows, side planks, and pretty much any variant of a plank is going to be fantastic. Planks on the BOSU or planks on an exercise ball is going to increase the challenge there, so increase the instability. So that is going to challenge you as well. Russian twists would also be fantastic. So that's where you're sitting on your bottom in a slight reclined position and twisting from side to side. Advanced level is by lifting your feet off the ground as well. So you're challenging your balance as well as taking your torso through that rotation. Cross crawl movements are fantastic. So a cross crawl movement is bilateral. So it's where we're using one side, two sides, but for example, a bird dog. So that is where we'd be on hands and knees, and we're reaching our right arm and left leg at a time. So we are crossing the midsection of the body in the movement. So yeah, bird dogs would be the kneeling version. A dead bug is the supine version. So you're laying on your back, your knees in tabletop, so 90 degrees at the knees, hands up to the ceiling, and then you're dropping your left leg and your right arm alternating. So using opposite sides, again, crossing the midline of your body. What else have I noted there? Ab bicycles would be another good one. So reaching your right elbow to your left knee and alternating there. So challenging both sides of the body. Anything that challenges your center of gravity. So obviously your center of gravity being in your core. Anything where we move outside of your center of gravity is going to challenge your core and your balance. A great one for that is forward stepping lunges, because you are stepping outside or stepping beyond your center of gravity. So anything that challenges that is really fantastic. And then focusing on ankles and lower legs, so even just standing still and raising up onto your tippy toes or the balls of your foot, that's going to help to strengthen ankles, feet, lower leg, lower calf strength and also balance. And then a progression or a variant of a squat, coming up onto your toes, similar to something you may have seen in Pilates. If you're squatting and you're raising one foot at a time, or as you're squatting, you're coming up onto your toe on both toes. So those are a few exercises that can be really good for balance. Like I said, anything that challenges your balance is going to help to improve it. And anything that is unstable will help to improve your balance as well. In saying that, a lot of our really stable exercises, so any of our machine-based exercises that are focusing on strength, will help to improve, strength in the things that we need for balance. And any freeweight exercises, again, likewise, will do the same. So as long as we're engaging our core in all of our freeweight exercises, we'll be getting some core work, and that will help to improve balance as well. So I hope that sort of answers your question there. Again, without knowing context and perhaps the person, it's hard to give kind of tailored advice. Really good question, and I was surprised that I hadn't yet heard this. So how do I know if I need to change my meal plan? Great question. A few things to think of. Check your results. So check your in-body scan and see how your results are tracking come the midpoint of the challenge. Are they tracking in a direction that you were hoping that they would be tracking? Have you dropped body fat? Have you increased muscle mass? Again, depending on your goal. If your goal is to increase muscle mass and you perhaps haven't, there's a few factors to look at. Nutrition is obviously one, strength training is obviously another. So check your results and see if it is tracking the way that you want it to. And if it's not, it could be a reflection of your meal plan. Check your BMR and see if that has shifted drastically from your first scan. Making sure that we are eating more than your basal metabolic rate. You'll be, but still in a deficit if that is your goal. Again, if your goal is to increase muscle mass, you're going to want to be eating in a surplus, so more than you're expending. So hard to give a definitive yes or no, but just check those things. Check your results, check that your basal metabolic rate has or hasn't changed drastically, and if it has changed, feel free to let me know. I can have a look at the meal plan that you're on, make sure it's still the most appropriate one for you, and if it's not, I can alter it for you. And check your goals. So check in with your goals, seeing what you are wanting to achieve, what you had hoped to have achieved by now, and see if there's tweaks to be made, whether it's in your nutrition, whether it's in your movement. Cool. And a similar question, what next after the challenge? Can I continue with the same program beyond the challenge? It's very similar to what I was just mentioning about meal plan, but short answer is yes. The program is as such that it is sustainable and maintainable long term. Your strength training programs are good to service you for as long as you like. Like I said, there are progressions, so there's extra workout plans that you can take away and you can continue on throughout the challenge. And in regards to workout plans as well, even if you started on the Getting Started program, there's nothing to say that you couldn't move up to the intermediate and then actually go back to the Getting Started, but you're then using it sort of as a bit of with a different goal in mind. You perhaps are using it to continue to increase in weights rather than perfecting form and getting your body moving like you were at the start. So any of these programs can be used again, and in a year's time you could bring them out again and reuse them and see where you're at. But like I said, we have more workout plans that you can progress to and take you beyond the challenge. Meal plan wise, again, I would do the same. Check your results, see how you're tracking, and again at the end of the challenge, see what results you've achieved with what you've done and what you've been following, and whether your goals change beyond the challenge. If perhaps you're wanting to stick to the program but you're not wanting to go so hard as you have in the challenge, there might be some changes to be made. And again, check your basal metabolic rate. If that's had a drastic shift, you may need a different meal plan, or you may need to just make some tweaks to what you're currently following to make sure it is sustainable and maintainable long term. We of course don't want to be living in a challenge, but that's, like I say, why we make this program the way that we make it. But it is not super restrictive. It is possible to follow this just about year round, making sure that we are, of course, fueling our bodies and making sure we're not eating in a too heavier or aggressive deficit year round, but making sure that we're fueling ourselves and achieving the goals that we're wanting to achieve. And again, that is so broad. It depends on what you're wanting to achieve. If you have some goals, or if you're just sort of wanting to maintain and live a healthy, balanced lifestyle throughout the year. So again, sorry, that's not a short answer. Nothing's really a short answer without, really specifics. But I hope that has answered the questions that were asked. And if anyone that has asked any of these questions didn't really get the answer that they were hoping for, please feel free to reach out to me. Happy to elaborate. If anyone has any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said on Monday in the MyZone raffle draws, it's been very quiet. Like I said, sometimes no news is good news and you're all happy plodding along, but please don't be afraid to reach out if there's anything that we can do to assist or clarify for you. But yeah, that's about it. Feel free to reach out if there's anything else. But that's all from me for the Q&A. end of week 5 this week, so end of week 6 next week, and we'll do the next MyZone raffle draw. And then the next time we see each other in person is actually end of the challenge at check-ins. So communication will come out about all of that, everything that you need to know for the rest of the challenge as we go. And then of course we get to celebrate with the Christmas party, which is poolside this year, out by the pool, which will be really nice on the 30th of November. So mark that in your diaries, let your friends and family know. It will be a great night to celebrate the end of the challenge, awards presentations, there's a DJ, and we just all get to kind of let our hair down and celebrate the end of the year and the end of the challenge. That's about it from me. Feel free to reach out if there's anything else I can assist with. Otherwise, I'll see you all in the gym soon. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.